Beneath the seemingly calm waters of the Mara River, ancient jaws lie dormant in absolute silence. But today, the ambusher isn't the only one ready to strike. When the kings of the river enter the fray, the Mara will erupt in an unforgiving rage. The fury of the grumpy beast, hippopotamus killer, interrupts the crocodile hunt. Under the scorching sun of the sub-Saharan region, the Mara River appears as a dark brown silk ribbon, gentle yet fraught with deadly traps. At a narrow bend, the water surface is as still as a mirror, reflecting the ancient acacia trees. A herd of wildebeest, after hours of marching through the red dust of the steppe, is cautiously approaching the water's edge. Hunger has overcome fear, but survival instinct compels them to pause, observing even the smallest ripples. However, the greatest danger is the invisible. Hidden deep beneath the murky waters, an ancient phantom drifted aimlessly. It was a colossal Nile crocodile, nearly 5 meters long, its rough, scaly armor resembling submerged rocks. Without a sound, without a ripple, it regulated its breathing and heartbeat to a minimum, transforming its nearly ton body into a lifeless log floating downstream. Its dull yellow eyes, bulging just a few millimeters above the water's surface, locked onto a trembling young wildebeest that bent down to take its first sips. Everything unfolded in a deathly silence. The crocodile skillfully used the current to close the distance. Two meters, 1 meter, and then just a few handspans. In the mind of this river predator, the hunt was half complete. It waited for the moment its prey was most vulnerable to unleash a 1,000-pound burst of speed, using its jaws with their terrifying biting force to lock onto the throat and drag the prey down into the abyss of darkness and murky water. The world held its breath, awaiting an explosion of blood and spray. Just as the crocodile coiled itself, preparing for its deadly bite, the previously calm surface of the water was suddenly shattered by a terrifying force from the riverbed. Not a ripple, but a massive mass of flesh, weighing nearly 3 tons, surged up from the mud, blocking the path between the predator and the terrified antelope. It was a male hippo, the alpha male, a giant known as the hot-tempered king of African rivers. Contrary to its somewhat slow and clumsy appearance, the hippo moved through the water with astonishing speed. It didn't appear to rescue the antelope out of kindness. It appeared because of an unforgivable territorial intrusion. For a male hippo guarding its kingdom, any disturbance from other predators was seen as a direct challenge to its supreme authority. The hippo stood tall like a living fortress, its thick, lead-gray hide glistening in the sunlight. It turned its head toward the crocodile, letting out a deep, rumbling roar, like a malfunctioning truck engine, shaking the entire stretch of river. At the same time, it performed a symbolic act of absolute power, opening its enormous mouth at an angle of nearly 180 degrees, displaying a pair of fangs up to 50 centimeters long, sharp and hideous like short swords. The pressure from the presence of this gruff fellow was so great that the air around it seemed to thicken. The giant crocodile, which had just been the master of the game, was now suddenly pushed into a disadvantageous position. It was forced to halt mid-air, its entire elaborate ambush strategy completely shattered by the sheer physical might of the enraged giant. The space above the Mara River was now compressed by a thick, palpable aura of menace. The crocodile, after a moment of stunned silence at having its meal stolen, was not easily tolerating the humiliation. The instincts of a prehistoric reptile surged. It violently thrashed its long, muscular tail, creating a fierce whirlpool, and suddenly lunged straight towards the meat fortress before it. A reckless gamble had been taken. But male hippos are not docile creatures. As soon as the crocodile closed the distance, the hippo lunged with unimaginable force for its massive size. The two monsters clashed in the vast expanse of the river. Finally, faced with the overwhelming ferocity and pure strength of the brutal guardian of the territory, the crocodile was forced to retreat. The hunt ended not because the prey escaped, but because another king of the river had spoken. In the Mara, the ambusher is not always the one who decides fate. Sometimes, true power belongs to the one who controls the territory and is ready to crush anyone who dares to trespass. But the Mara River was not the only place where the explosion occurred. As the sun rose higher, on the savannah not far away, another wave was forming, not from the water, but from speed. From afar, The African wild dogs did not look like rulers. Their bodies are slender, their legs long, and their fur is mottled with patches of brown, black, and white, like hastily applied paint. They don't have the majestic mane of a lion. They don't have the bulging muscles of a hyena. But hidden behind that seemingly fragile exterior is one of Africa's most effective hunting machines. Their large, round ears are always erect, catching even the slightest sound amidst the rustling grass. Their sense of smell is sensitive enough to detect lingering scents from hours ago. But their most fearsome weapon lies not in their senses, but in their coordination. Wild dogs hunt like a perfectly trained military unit. There are no warning roars, no displays of strength. When they begin to accelerate, the entire pack moves as a unified stream, changing direction almost simultaneously, reacting to the slightest movement of their prey. They don't need to look at each other. They only need to sense the rhythm of their teammates running. Unlike lions, which concentrate all their strength into a single decisive attack, wild dogs choose a strategy of attrition. They maintain high speed over long distances, exhausting their prey before delivering precise bites to the hind legs or lower abdomen. This persistence gives them one of the highest hunting success rates among large predators in Africa. And when the pack of wild dogs appears on the savannah, the atmosphere changes. Not because of roars, but because of organized silence. For when they begin to move, it is no longer a chase between hunter and prey, but a disciplined whirlwind sweeping across the grassland, carrying with it a different kind of power. The power of absolute synchronicity. Ahead of them, the wildebeest herd is still reeling from their encounter in the river. And that is the most dangerous moment. An invisible signal is given. The pack of wild dogs accelerates. In just seconds, the previously quiet savannah transforms into a whirlwind of red dust. Wildebeest scattered, trampling over each other, creating waves of panic that surged in all directions. But the wild dogs didn't pursue the entire pack. They split up, separating and forcing their targets away from their protective formation. A young individual was cornered. 2 blocked its path, 3 flanked it. The alpha dog followed closely behind, patient and cold. There was no heavy pounce like a lion. No lightning-fast bite like a crocodile. Only relentless speed and continuous bites to the legs and hips, wearing down its strength every second. The gasping breaths, the pounding of hooves, the tearing wind all blended together into a chaotic symphony of survival. In less than a few minutes, the order of the savannah was shattered. This wasn't a solitary hunt. This was a coordinated operation. And when wild dogs join the game, chaos isn't a consequence, it's a tactic. On the southern bank, a pride of lions stood silently. Behind them lay a land depleted of prey. Ahead lay the treacherous waters. But choice was no longer possible. Under the blazing sun of the Mara region at the end of the dry season, the river appeared quiet but heavy, like a warning. The murky water flowed slowly, concealing ancient jaws that had existed for millions of years. The alpha lioness stepped in first. Water touched her chest, then her shoulders. She was in no hurry. Her amber eyes scanned the river's surface, reading every slightest movement of the current. The cubs hesitated behind, their soft cries a mixture of fear and trust. Finally, the entire pride entered the water. The lion cubs went in first, small amidst the wide, murky river. The water rose to their chests, making their steps clumsy. Each stroke was a struggle, their young legs kicking repeatedly to keep their heads from sinking. The cold, heavy current pulled their bodies off course, forcing them to raise their chins, their eyes wide with panic. Gasping breaths echoed across the calm water. A cub struggled, its feet no longer touching the bottom. It tried to cling to the waves, turning to rejoin the group, but the silent current separated it from the pride's protective circle. On the shore, the lioness let out a low, rumbling call, both urging and reassuring. The river remained eerily still. Only small circles spread from where the cubs had thrashed about. No one could see what was creeping beneath. No one could hear the slow heartbeat of the ambusher. The lion cubs continued to advance, meter by meter, unaware that just below the murky water, a colossal shadow had begun to change direction. The river did not roar like a lion. It only silently parted. At a depth of only a few handspans below the surface, a gigantic black shadow began to move. The Nile crocodile didn't need speed from the start. It just needed the right timing. Its dull yellow eyes gleamed like two pieces of driftwood. The distance narrowed in a deadly silence. A young one slipped as the current suddenly tightened. The formation widened in an instant. And that was the moment the steel jaws emerged from the water. A tense confrontation erupted on the river. But the lioness turned. She roared, surging against the current, forming a living wall between the predator and the young one. The other adults immediately tightened their formation, surrounding the smallest individual in a protective arc. The crocodile thrashed violently, trying to turn to find another angle of attack. But the lions didn't disperse. They moved in unison, changing direction diagonally across the current, instead of swimming straight, depriving the predator of its ambush advantage. After a few seconds of chaos, the enormous jaws only bit into air and foam. The battle on the surface of the river ended as quickly as it began. The crocodile dived down, accepting its missed opportunity. The lions, soaking wet and exhausted, finally reached the other side. Not a single one was left behind. Sunset descended upon Mara, staining the waters that had once been a battlefield red. The lion family silently entered their new territory. They didn't defeat the crocodile with overwhelming strength. They survived through formation, mutual protection, and the right decision in that brief moment between life and death. In Mara, the strongest isn't always the victor. Sometimes, victory is simply the entire family remaining intact when they reach the other side of the deadly river. As darkness gradually engulfed the river, the crocodiles sank to the bottom, the hippos returned to their deep waters, the wild dogs vanished behind clouds of red dust, and the lion family silently advanced into their new territory. Tomorrow, Mara would witness another hunt. But today, what remains is not blood or roars, but the stark truth of nature. Power here is not permanent. Only survival is the only law that never changes. Serengeti, heaven and hell. The high-pitched laughter of hyenas echoed across the savannah. There is nothing more dangerous than a mother deprived of her cub. And the savannah was about to pay the price. A lioness lost her cub, and her anger changed the hunting season. Dawn rose over the Serengeti like a golden silk, gently touching the endless sea of grass. The first rays of sunlight penetrated the thin mist, making every speck of dust floating in the air sparkle. In the distance, a herd of antelope moved slowly, silhouetted in faint lines against the rosy sky. The early wind carried the vapor from the remaining depressions of the rainy season, making the savannah seem to breathe slowly and peacefully. There was no roar, no chase, just a rare silence before the daily whirl of survival. In the midst of that soft golden grass, a large golden shadow gently stepped out from the thorny acacia bush. It was Mara, a young but experienced lioness. Her steps were unhurried, but her ears twitched constantly, a natural vigilance of those who live on the harsh savannah. Right behind her, a lion cub trotted along. He was only a few weeks old, his fur still spotted with pale patterns, his eyes clear as if he had just opened to the world for the first time. On the savannah, where life is always determined by claws and fangs, peaceful moments like these are more precious than anything. But at the most seemingly peaceful moments, fate was about to paint an unstoppable tragedy. No one knew this would be the last morning for the lion cub, and the last moment a mother would be with her child in peace. The sun had just risen above the horizon. The whole land was bathed in a golden light, breathtakingly beautiful. But somewhere, other eyes were watching, patient, hungry, and ready to pounce on the slightest mistake. The Serengeti noon was so hot that the air trembled like a distorted mirror. The wildebeest herd was gathering in the shallows, where the dry mud still held a rare moisture. They were alert, but tired from the lingering heat. In the grass, a few dozen meters away, Mara, the lioness, lay pressed to the ground. Her golden eyes locked on a wildebeest that had strayed slightly from the herd. Behind, among the thorny acacia bushes, the lion cub slept, curled up like a tiny ball of fur. She never wanted to leave it, but the harsh truth was, if a lioness didn't make the kill, her cub would starve. In that moment, instinct made the decision for her. The sprint began. It was over quickly, neatly, efficiently. It was a perfect hunt. The cub rushed away in panic, but seconds later, Mara was close. A swipe of the claws. A precise bite to the neck. The hunt was over quickly, cleanly, perfectly. Mara had won. But in the moment she placed her teeth on the neck of her prey, her mind was elsewhere, where a baby slept under the acacia tree. She left the carcass behind, turned and charged toward the bushes. But as she got closer, she stopped. There was no more tiny cry. No more movement of the cub waiting for its mother. Only absolute silence. She walked slowly to the base of the acacia tree and saw what every lioness fears most. On the ground was the body of her cub, small, weak, and no longer breathing. Despair stabbed into her eyes like a spear. Mara stood there, motionless. The air around Mara seemed to thicken. A hot wind blew through the grass, but the small body was still cold. It wasn't the first time the one who stole her child had taken it away, and it wouldn't be the last. On this savanna, there was a silent war that lasted for millions of years, a war between lions and hyenas. Not because of personal grudges, not because of a momentary moment, but because of the instinct to survive. Hyenas kill lion cubs whenever they find them. It is their way of protecting their pride from future enemies. And lions, like Mara, have always understood this all too well. Therefore, there has never been peace between the two species. There has only been a fight for survival, passed down through generations with blood, hatred, and losses like this. This is not just the death of a lion cub. It is a cycle written by nature, when two people standing at the same position in the food chain must compete to the end. And today, Mara has just lost the most important part of herself because of that eternal fight. When Mara returns to the pride, there is no comfort waiting for her. The male lion, Titan, only cares about one thing, his own bloodline. Mara, losing her cub means she will not be able to produce the next generation for a while. For an alpha male, it was a failed investment. Mara's status in the pride plummeted. The other lionesses kept their distance. Mara's personal grief was crushed by the survival system. She was no longer a lioness, but a failed individual in the eyes of the pride. Mara left the pride. There was no farewell roar. Only the silent footsteps of someone who had just lost her cub, her position, her reason to continue living as before. Mara began to hunt alone, but not to eat, but to vent her anger. Mara went on a mad hunt. She no longer hunted with conventional tactics. She hunted with anger. This behavioral change was a rare biological phenomenon. The loss of her cub caused a spike in stress hormones and adrenaline. Mara was no longer a survival hunter. She became something else, a weapon. The weapon was aimed at the one who had stolen her cub from the Bonebreakers clan, the hyena pack led by Queen Zara. For 3 days, Mara tracked them. She did not accompany the pack. She did not assist in the hunt. She became the shadow of the Bonebreakers clan. During the day, she lay in wait in the ancient trees near the hyenas' resting places. Whenever they caught prey, she would appear immediately, forcing them to flee or pay with injuries. Each time, the Bonebreakers clan lost hours of hunting, kilos of meat, liters of energy. And for a pack of hyenas with many cubs, that was a more dangerous attack than any bite. Mara undermined the hyena's power base. Without food, the Bonebreakers clan would turn against their own queen. Not far away, behind a cracked mound, the Bonebreakers clan hyenas were gathered around a carcass they had just stolen from a pack of wild dogs. The shrill laughter was not from joy but from tension. In the center of the chaos, 2 female hyenas were facing each other. Their eyes were locked, their fangs bared, their backs arched. The surrounding hyena pack was unusually silent because in their society, fighting for power was a matter of survival, and only the most ruthless were qualified to be the leader. The battle broke out. Dust flew up, hoarse roars mixed with hateful screeches. No one intervened. Because in the hyena pack, the throne only belonged to those who dared to dye their fur with the blood of others. But the adults moved closer, their eyes shining because this fight was not only about resolving internal conflicts but also the time when the whole pack would go mad with hunger. The hyena's power was shaken, not by an internal rival, but by an external enemy that was attacking the pack's stomach. That was what Mara wanted. She didn't need to kill all the hyenas. She just needed to make them hungry, make them dissatisfied, and intensify the internal power struggles. Over the next few weeks, the Bonebreakers clan's hunting success rate dropped dramatically. Areas they once dominated were abandoned. They were forced to move deeper into lion territory or risk competing with wild dogs and leopards. As a result, many hunts were broken up before they were finished. There were fewer carcasses, vultures circled higher and longer. Herds of antelope were forced to change their routes to avoid the new chaos. The hunting season had deviated from its original trajectory. It all started with a small carcass under an acacia tree. Mara knew. The hyenas wouldn't stop. They would continue to search for other cubs. The death of her cub had not only created a haunting, it had created a real threat to the entire territory. Mara couldn't return to the pack with honor, but she could act as an outlaw protector. She became a ghost on the Serengeti, with no fixed territory, no pack, only a single target, making the hyenas pay every time they came near her cub. In nature, we usually think of hatred as an emotion. But here, it was also an evolutionary tactic. The pain transformed Mara into a tougher, smarter predator. Rage didn't kill her. It remade her. Scientists call it a form of psychological reboundary intimidation. It only takes one individual to be extreme enough to change the behavior of an entire rival population. The Bonebreaker clan was in chaos. Zara's prestige was eroded. The male titan, the alpha lion, had to adjust his patrol routes to areas Mara had heated up. A mother lion who lost her cub accidentally redrawn the map of that year's hunting season. On the harsh savannah, where life and death are only a breath apart, sometimes the game changer is not the strongest, but the one with nothing left to lose. On this harsh land, no victory is permanent. No pain passes without a trace. And no individual, no matter how small or solitary, cannot change the entire animal community. Mara has taught the Serengeti a lesson. When a mother loses her child, the entire hunting season must be rewritten. But the story doesn't end there. The Bonebreakers clan is still shaking. Zara is losing power. Titan is reclaiming territory. And Mara is still walking between two worlds, a lion without a pride, but stronger than ever. Stay tuned, because the next chapter of the Serengeti will be even more brutal, fierce, and breathtakingly beautiful. And don't forget to ring the bell and subscribe so you don't miss the next wildlife survival series.